Presents. I'm Keith Williams. This is part two of our coverage concerning the public hearing that took place earlier today at the Hugo Black Federal Courthouse. This reason why this public hearing came to existence is because the Supreme Court had ultimately rejected the map that was drawn by the Alabama state legislature in regards to complying with an order that was given by the federal court. And so today there was a public hearing. We did do a part one this morning, and we got some reactions from quite a bit of people. We had a couple of attorneys, citizens, activists, and we have an opportunity to talk to a couple of state legislator members because we wasn't allowed to actually do any type of recording of the hearing itself. So in this part, I'm going to go over some of the details of the hearing. We thought that the hearing was going to end at around 4 o'clock Central Time due to the fact that the presiding judge had allowed the plaintiff and the defendant to, they each had an hour for their closing remarks. So they did not take, both sides did not take the full hour. And so with that in mind, the hearing pretty much ended roughly a little over an hour earlier than expected. So they did have the press conference. You can go on Facebook of any of the local media, whether it's Birmingham or Montgomery, to actually listen to the press conference. I'm not sure who were the speakers that were involved in this conference, but stay tuned to your local media station in Birmingham or Montgomery to get any information about that press conference, as well as any additional information regarding the case. But I'm going to give you my eyewitness view of what happened. So here was pretty much the setup. You had a 3-judge panel that had been assigned to hear this case. So this is a preliminary hearing to determine whether or not the Alabama state legislature had defied a federal court order to have the Alabama congressional maps redrawn to the point that you had 2 congressional districts that are majority African American. There was evidence that was presented by, so there was opening remarks from the attorney for the plaintiff and then the defense. And then there was a part to where each side would present evidence. The 3-judge panel asks, any type of questions that relating to the evidence, and whether or not each side objects or not object to the evidence that was presented. And then at the close, after all the evidence was presented, the judge gave the plaintiff and the defendant an hour for their closing remarks. They did not use the entire hour that was allotted to them. And so we thought that the hearing was going to end around 4 or 5 o'clock Central Time. Instead, they both sides did not use their hour time allotment. Their, in other words, their closing arguments was pretty short, and so as a result, the hearing actually ended shortly before 3 o'clock Central Time. And so, with that, we will go to. So that was the setup there. So now we will go to some of the preliminaries. Um, so there's several cases involving the fact that the Alabama State Legislature had defied a federal court order to redraw the maps to the point that it complied with Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act, which back in June, when the Supreme Court made their ruling that the map had violated Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act. And the Alabama State Legislature was ordered by the court to redraw the maps that comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And that was passed by the state legislature in late July. Um, but after looking at those maps, the plaintiffs discovered that the state of Alabama did not comply with a federal court order. There were specific guidelines that must be met in order for the maps to be approved. Obviously, the map has been rejected by the Supreme Court, and it was then ordered that a public hearing would take place on August the 14th, which is today. And so that was the reason why there was a lot of commotion that was going on because the plaintiffs felt that um, the state of Alabama did not comply with the federal court order and that there was no remedy to comply with Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act. And so that's why the hearing has taken place. We kind of figured that there wasn't going to be any type of ruling today because so much evidence has been presented. And so let's go with the defense first. Um, they have presented probably about 30 different pieces of, I want to say, documents and articles that will go into, exhibits. Usually to be Exhibit A through Z. If there's any more, there'll be like A1 or B1 or C2 or C3 is normally how it works. Where a lot of their evidence was not admissible in court because the judges felt that they had a pretty weak argument as to why they felt the state has not complied. And so one of the things that they talked about, particularly in regards to District 1 and 2, that the defense claimed that District 2 is considered to be an African American majority district simply because of its population. The city of Mobile is predominantly African American, but if you look at other places in Mobile County, and particularly in Baldwin County, um, and the rest of the district, we would see that that's evidence said that that was not the case. For example, the city of Dothan is part of they're divided into two districts, District 1 and District 2. The northern part of the city of Dothan is in District 2, and the southern part is in District 1. Doesn't even come close to being majority African American. Uh, neither neither the counties that are surrounding the city of Dothan, whether you're in District 1 or 2. Also, they talk a lot about, it's a term they use, it's called community of interest. That simply means that in terms of drawing political district maps, it means that people have, expressed an interest in an area being part of one district. For example, the argument was made that Mobile County and Baldwin County should be in the same district because they share the same economic interests, and that both counties have or will benefit from the economic impact that, for example, the Gulf Coast brings every year, or the port of Mobile has brought a lot of positive economic impact to, that area, that it would suggest that, for the sake of unity, that both Mobile and Baldwin counties should be part of the same district, particularly District 2. The problem is that District 1 is not a very large district. The bulk of the population, obviously, of that area, obviously, is the southern part of Dothan, and of course, the suburbs of Mobile. You got Fairhope, you got Bay Minette, you got Gulf Shores, you got Orange Beach. All of those are in Baldwin County. Baldwin County, where you have Pritchard, for example, that's in Mobile County, and you have several other cities that are there. Um, Now, the smaller municipalities in Baldwin County um, doesn't have a larger population than the suburbs in Mobile County. But it's enough to balance the scales in District 1. So if you take District 1 out of the picture, uh, they're not going to meet that. They're not going to meet that population threshold that all congressional districts, have to have. So with the 7 districts that are in Alabama, they're supposed to be divided equally. Same thing. If you have a mayor council form of government, all of your districts are supposed to have they roughly the same population. So if you take Baldwin County out of District 1 and put it in District 2, um, that means that District 1 would have a much greater population than that of District 1, and it's not going to balance out anyway. One of the rules is suggests that when you're drawing congressional districts, that every district has to have roughly the same population. Now, the reason why, for example, District 6, the 6th congressional district in Alabama, is considered small is because the majority of the population comes from Jefferson County. So the majority of the population in District 6 lives in Jefferson County. And it's pretty much take up about third. If you put the Birmingham metro area together, that serves about 1/3 of the state's population. And so with that, and of course, it is majority African American, particularly because the city of Birmingham is majority African American. Whereas if you go in places like Leeds or in Shelby County, I would say Northeast Shelby County. Um, Population is a little smaller compared to Birmingham, but it's considered to be suburban. And so the makeup of District 6 is Birmingham. That's where most of the people come from. Same thing for District 7. Uh, Same thing District 7. Because the city of Birmingham is consists of two districts, 6 and 7. So that's a whole big contrast to District 1 and District 2. Because in District 2 uh, you have parts of Montgomery. All of Montgomery is not in District 2. It's you got some parts that are in District 7, and you got some parts that are in District 3. So we want to talk about community interests. It should be that the city of Montgomery should be a part of one district. That has not been discussed. And I do believe that while the rest of Montgomery County is in District 2, the city of Montgomery itself is divided among three districts. You got the western part of Montgomery, that's in District 7. You got the central part of Montgomery, that's in District 2. And you got the eastern part of Montgomery, where Atlanta Highway is, US 80 East, that area, that is part of District 3. Um, but yet the majority of Montgomery has an African American population, but yet they are divided among three districts. And so this was one of the challenges that was made, in the complaint. But we didn't hear, and it's, evidence of that has already been presented. Of course, that was one of the things that the defense did not talk about, nor did they have any explanation as to why the city of Montgomery is still broken up into three districts rather than to have a map to where the city of Montgomery is consists of one district. And I think preferably that would probably be District 7, if anything. Um, if you take Birmingham or Jefferson County away and give it to District 6, I believe that the city of Montgomery will probably make up for that population loss, and that both District 6 and 7 would be majority African American, and that will comply with the federal court order. But again, that's not been discussed neither. The thing that the defense was talking about is the community interest of Mobile and Baldwin County, so that the Gulf region in Alabama, would be united. But the problem is that Birmingham, Mobile and Mobile County, which is where the city of Mobile lies, and Baldwin County are two different worlds. Mobile County is heavily populated, is densely populated, whereas Baldwin County is sparsely populated. They have a less population base than Mobile County does. And the reason why it balances itself out in District 1 is because you have a significant portion of Dothan with a sizable population to kind of like balance, things out. There where I would think that uh, Dothan should be part of District 1, just so that the city of Dothan can be united under one district instead of being part of two districts. Same thing for Montgomery, has which is represented by three districts, should also be unified into one district. Again, the defense did not talk about that. They basically talked about uh, the economic interests that the Port of Mobile has, which is split between Baldwin and Mobile counties, and that they feel that because of that strong economic impact and presence that is in the area, that Mobile and Baldwin counties should be unified into one district. The problem is that that's going to take away from the population in District 1, and District 1 is going to be at a serious disadvantage. Now, this does not have to do, this is not a black and white issue. This has to do with a balance of population among the congressional district. And so if you take Baldwin County out of District 1, put it in District 2, um, District 1 is going to be, there's going to be a disbalance of population in District 1, whereas in District 2, they will actually gain, population, which means that they will have more of a political representation of District 1. So I do not agree with that. And a lot of the evidence that was presented centered around that with no explanation or no accountability as to and no response really to the plaintiff's complaint that the Alabama legislature did not comply with the federal court order, and that the violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has not been remedied. So there was no explanation from them. Um, I can tell that by listening to the three-judge panel, and their body language suggests that they're getting really frustrated, over this, fact, and that we wouldn't be here if the state legislator would have just complied with the court order, and there would be no need for a public hearing. And based on indirect responses to the plaintiff, it's suggested by the judge that you are in defiance of a federal court order, that they have deliberately decided to defy the U.S. Supreme Court and do whatever the hell that they wanted to do, simply because we're coming up on the election year nationally in 2024, and that Republicans in the state of Alabama wanted to maintain their political power in the state. Commentary-wise, I do believe that the defendants know that they're about to lose this case, and so what they have done is that they came up with this, economic community interest, argument to kind of shy away from the real problem, and the three-judge panel is not buying it at all. I believe their line of questioning was the meat and potatoes at hand, and their answers, the defendant's answers, suggest that they pretty much was dancing around the issue, and they was pretty much pulling straws. So a lot of the evidence that was presented centered around that economic community interest, to where they claim to speak for the people to say that because of this mutual economic interest in Mobile and Baldwin counties, that they should be a part of one district, as opposed to not having a conversation about the city of Dothan, which is in southeast Alabama, is also divided into two districts, 1 and 2. And that there was no comment suggests that both of those cities should be under one district as well. I think that, in my opinion, that all of the city of Dothan should be part of District 1, um, for population balance more so than in District 2, because you have cities like Mobile, and you have a third the city of Montgomery, not including the suburbs of Montgomery, not including the suburbs of Mobile. When that happens, we get to see that population balance that every district has to have. And so, if I was to present a map of that caliber, then that would be my recommendations for District 1 and 2, which have not been discussed. Nor has not been discussed about what to do with District 6. Now, there was some comments that was made that suggest that the entire Black Belt become one district, and that includes the city of Mobile. But what happens is that you're going to have like a range so large that it will probably be difficult to have genuine leadership because the vast you know because of the vastness of the district. It'll probably stretch probably a couple of hundred miles. If I would say drive from Montgomery to Mobile, that's roughly about 4 hours. That's a 4 hour drive, so that's too large. That's too large for anyone to govern. Um, and plus, we know that area is majority African American, as well. So this is basically Jefferson County, in the Black Belt. If you was to put that together, that's half of the state of Alabama, population wise and land wise. So it would be a whole lot better if District 6 and 7 becomes the majority African American districts, as well. And then, all the others will remain the same. There was also an acknowledgement by the defense that they have declared that yes, we did comply with the federal court order, and that they have declared that District 2, they declared that District 2 is the majority African American district. But in the evidence that was presented by the plaintiff, that evidence did not add up to that claim. I agree. The numbers definitely do not add up, there. And plus, there has been, a complaint that Montgomery is not one district. Is not. It doesn't reside in one district. In fact, Montgomery, the city of Montgomery, and not talking about Montgomery County, I'm talking about the city of Montgomery. The city of Montgomery is divided into three different districts. You got District 2, you got District 2 in the middle, you got District 7 to the west, and you got District 3 to the east. And that it consists with is that the city of Montgomery part of one district, either District 7 or District 6. Personally, I think that Montgomery should be part of District 7. I don't think it should be part of District 6 because considering that would give District 6 an edge population wise. That would put more people in District 6 than it is, in District 7, because District 7, although you got a portion of Birmingham, in there, it still won't match up to the population in District 6. If you put Montgomery in District 6. But if you put Montgomery in District 7, um, that would kind of, balance things out for that sparingly population that the black belt has. So roughly, District 6 and District 7 would have the same or similar population, and they would have the same percentage of African Americans in District 6 and District 7. So that's what I think that Montgomery should be added to 7 rather than the 6. So that's pretty much the plaintiff's um, arguments, and the evidence that support that does not justify why they violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And the plaintiffs made that pretty clear based on experts' testimony, and a lot of the documents that they have filed, has supported the fact that yes, they have not complied, and the violation has not been remedied. And that was simply because the majority of the state legislature is Republican, and that their tradition, as they call it, is to maintain absolute control of political affairs in the state of Alabama. So he would suggest that uh, the legislators should have a unanimous say so of how elections go in the state and how voting, should go. That is called what is known as the independent legislative theory, which was challenged by the Supreme Court in North Carolina. This was in regards to the 2020 election, and this was something that was hinted by the defense for the state of Alabama, which was totally dropped and rejected by the panel, simply because I'm referring back to that North Carolina case, to where they wanted the legislature to have complete control over elections there, and it was turned down by the Supreme Court. So it's no surprise that this three-judge panel had rejected that notion. But again, that was something that the defense had brought up. It was part of their argument. It's a very weak argument at that. The economic community interest argument is a very weak argument as well. They never talked about uh, having a compromise or even finding a solution so that they are able to comply, with the federal, court order. They just basically went in the map that they have passed is pretty much similar to the map that was used before the 2020 census came out. So in other words, really nothing was done. They basically just passed the same map that was used previously, and then tried to gaslight the judge panel, and they was not buying it at all. Um, so not a lot of the evidence that was presented by the defense was admissible, in court, although a lot of it was reserved for further discussion. It would more than likely be turned down, as well, because the the plaintiffs, I believe, had a better case. They was better prepared. Uh, they was very professional and straightforward with their answers to the questions that the panel asked them, whereas defense was pretty much dancing around the question and was taking the plaintiff's evidence out of context, which of course the panel did not buy that neither. So the defense really had a weak case here, and I believe that the panel will rule in favor of the plaintiffs as stated that the remedy to comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has not been met. And so, with that, the court will have to appoint a team to draw and pass the maps themselves because they do not trust that the Alabama legislature will comply with the orders that allegedly have not been remedied and allegedly, again, um, the violation of the Voter Rights Act still stands. And I cannot blame them. I don't even trust them to scratch the top of my head, let alone giving them another opportunity to redeem themselves because clearly they are stuck in this cult like tradition of keeping power among themselves, the minority speaking for the majority. And that's not how democracy works. Because we know we come up on an election a year, and the Republicans in the state of Alabama, have vowed not only to maintain their power, but to strengthen their power and pretty much do away with any hint of democracy. And I do believe that, and they do not want any type of federal intervention, which of course is called state rights. And so, if the state of Alabama prevails, it means that the system of checks and balances is broken because they're pretty much saying that, you know, we're not going to follow federal orders. Federal government cannot tell us what to do. So there's no sense in having any type of checks and balances because another branch of government cannot hold, one branch of government cannot hold another branch of government, accountable, which means that one branch will have more power, than the other. So in the case of the state of Alabama, um, the legislator would probably end up having more power than the governor has if you have what is called the independent legislative theory, if that's intact. Um, Even though that phrase, that term was not used, logically, the concept of one branch of government having more power over all the others, was mentioned here. And this would further undermine voting among African Americans in the state of Alabama, and it would also diminish political power among minorities, particularly African Americans and people of color in the state of Alabama. But yet, we will continue to pay taxes here without true representation, without being at the table to decide who do we want to represent us, whether it's on the local level or the federal level. This would pretty much undermine what democracy should look like. And I think the three panel judge, they understood that. And so um, they will be violating federal law themselves as they go along with this. This was the unanimous decision that was made by the Supreme Court with probably one or two dissensions in the case. But overall, the Supreme Court pretty much sided with African American voters. And I truly believe that that would be the case again, to where this three panel judge would side with uh, the plaintiffs and African American voters. And I could tell by their body language and voice that they're becoming really agitated, irritated, and annoyed by state of Alabama's continued defiance of federal law. And I do believe that they need to be held accountable. They definitely need to be held accountable for their actions. Now, what the court plans to do, I'm not sure. I kind of figured that they wasn't going to do a ruling today simply because there was a lot of litigation that's going on that needs to be weighted on the judicial scale. And the panel needs to look over the evidence that was presented in order to have, in order for the ruling to be balanced and fair. Um, it was also suggest that a brief of an explanation of some items of clarity. You know, in other words, the judge is asking them, okay, why do you feel that there's a violation here to the plaintiff or to the defendant? Why you believe that there isn't a violation? So this is where the accountability part, you know, is coming at, and they have to file that statement with the court by Saturday, August 19th. So they basically have until Saturday, August 19th, uh, to present that statement, um, roughly called a statement of accountability to the court by Saturday, August 19th. Not sure what's going to happen. So that would be taken into consideration along with the evidence that's being presented. And I'm not sure what the penalty is going to be if they do not comply with this order that was issued by the presiding judge. So it would be very interesting to see um, if they're going to comply this time and what information or content will be contained in those accountability statements. So we'll have to watch and stay tuned for that. So that's pretty much all that happened today. Um, it wasn't long and drawn out as I thought it was. I thought it was very informative, even though it started around 9 in the morning and roughly ended shortly before 3. So that's like roughly about 6 hours litigation and discussion, which is not bad for a court case of this magnitude that, of course, does have national or has become um, a national phenomena and definitely have national election implications for 2024. I'm quite sure that there are other states that are looking at this case very closely. Um, there are other cases that involving this violation that would be heard at a later time, or it might be strapped all together based on the evidence and arguments that being presented for both the plaintiff and the defendant. Um, we're not sure when uh, the judicial panel is going to rule, but based on their comments, their line of questioning, and their body language, I don't see the state having a case in this matter, and I don't see them um, being accountable and being responsible for their actions. But I do believe that this panel, judicial panel, is going to, force them into a corner to where they will have to be accountable, or they're going to do it for them. I do see that coming, and I don't see a ruling coming anytime soon. We have to wait and see how the judicial panel, is going to respond to the evidence that was given. Obviously, it was a lot of evidence that was given, and then these statements of accountability. So they're going to take that all into consideration before they make a ruling. And as soon as I hear something, you will hear something. So until then, that's it. That's all I have today. Um, if you missed part 1, you can go back into the archives here at the OBS International YouTube channel, and you can watch it there. Furthermore, uh, our coverage will also be posted on Facebook, Spotify, and all the major podcasting platforms later this week. So if you do not have access to book or YouTube, you can go to Anchor, Spotify, and or your favorite podcasting platform, and you can watch it there. Also, organizations like Alabama Values uh, will be having live updates. Just go to the Alabama Values Facebook page. They don't have anything up now, but I can assure you that they will have an update later on this afternoon, so you can check them out. Also, too, if you have access to Facebook, you can turn to the Facebook pages of local media here, either in Birmingham or Montgomery, for complete coverage as well. Again, the media was not allowed to actually record the actual hearing, um, but they have taken notes, and they're going to use those notes to make a report as to what happened. They did have a press conference as well shortly after the hearing took place. Again, if you have access to Facebook, you can tune in to the local media stations in Montgomery or Birmingham if you want to get additional information about this case. So this is from a podcaster's perspective. I hope that you are caught up to date as to what happened today, and we will continue to follow this story for further developments. Once we have them, we will bring them to you. So until then, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you so much. Have a great day.